There's a voice deep inside every dad calling him to lead. Society, vices, inner demons, negative thoughts try to dampen and drown out that voice, but it never goes away. Your wife feels it, your children feel it, and your heart and soul feel it too. It's the voice that starts off as a whisper, but then becomes a calling to be the tip of the spear for your family, a calling to play all out and lead by example for your children, a calling to build a legacy that will go on for generations, a calling to be the warrior dad you were born to be. Dads, our children need us now more than ever to be that beacon of hope, courage, positivity, and strength. It's time to rise as warrior dads together as a brotherhood. If you felt that twinge in your soul, it's time for the Warrior Dad experience. Welcome to the show. I am excited to have special guest Kevin Lavelle on the show. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm fired up after that intro. I love it.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped up to have you get into this discussion. Always like to frame up, especially when I have fellow dads on the podcast. What's the dad life look like for you? Ages of the kiddos and kind of the dynamic there from a family perspective.
Yeah, thanks. So my wife and I had just celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary, and we have a 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing. So you've got some definite context to the discussion we're going to dive into. So you mentioned challenges linked to infant sleeplessness and potential solutions. I know new dads can feel that. You're a lot fresher from those days than I am with 15 and 14-year-olds, but explain kind of, hey, what took you down that journey, and let's dive into that subject.
Yeah, so I mentioned my wife and I just celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary. We actually worked together for a number of years building our first business, Mizzen+Main. And in that process, we found out that she was pregnant with our son. And I went out and did a lot of research and was excited to go get some baby tech, baby monitor, make my life easier, use technology to make my life better. Went out and bought what I was told was sort of the most innovative product on the market. It's a company called Nanit. It's a Wi-Fi camera that you run an app on your phone. I woke up one morning, my son was a couple months old, and the app on my phone had just crashed. And when an app on your phone crashes, it can't tell you that it crashed because it crashed. And I learned the hard way that you can't rely on an app on your phone to be a baby monitor. Okay. So I went out and bought an old school Motorola camera and an old school Motorola monitor, and I ran 2 systems in parallel. And I know every helicopter parent says they're not a helicopter parent, but it's not helicoptering. It's just, I wanted to know if I was not monitoring my son. Mm-hmm. And then with a nanny at home, because my wife went back to work and helping build our business, with a nanny at home or a babysitter, you just want to be able to check in on your kid and make sure that, they're safe and being well taken care of. So 7 years later, my son's 7, no one has built a better baby monitor. And that's what I set out to do with Harbor. So Harbor is, I've got for video, Harbor is, it's a camera and a 10-inch tablet that connect directly to each other, and they work with or without internet. So you get the best of both worlds. But more importantly, it's all designed to help dads and moms get more sleep. Sleep and water are the 2 things we really can't live without. You can go a long time without food or a lot of other things in your life. Mm-hmm. If you go too long without water or sleep, the effects are very, very severe. And so every dad, whether, we were talking before the show, your kids are a little bit older, every dad, every mom remembers those sleepless nights for the first few months. And in some cases, for some parents, years. And Harbor is all about helping parents establish those healthy sleep routines and rhythms early. So we have a whole lot of free information we give on our website. We've got sleep experts. We have RNs on staff that will coach parents through what they need. But importantly, our product is all about making it so that you can get sleep and sanity back in your life. And we can talk more specifics about it. But fundamentally, we exist to help parents and kids get more sleep and help parents through those toughest sleepless nights with both technology. And then we have RNs on staff that offer all-night remote night nanny services to be able to help parents get sleep and know whether or not their kids need them.
Gotcha. Okay. Pretty awesome, right? You had the experience yourself and you're like, there's got to be something better out there. So you said with or without internet. So without internet, how is it connected? What's that kind of look like?
So the camera creates its own signal to connect to the monitor. So you're not reliant on your home internet, your home Wi-Fi. Importantly, that means also if you travel, you can bring the camera and the monitor with you. So if you're using any home Wi-Fi cameras or any of the premium Wi-Fi baby monitors, which are just cameras with an app, you can't take those with you when you travel. Because if you go to a hotel and you get adjoining rooms so your kid can sleep in one room and you and your partner can sleep in the other, you are not in a place with any of those Wi-Fi cameras where you can tap the Wi-Fi for your camera. Now, with our device, the camera and the tablet work directly with each other without internet, but also when you're at home, they leverage your home internet. And that's some of the technology that we've built that we think is really pioneering, and we're hopeful can be a game changer for parents everywhere. We also the camera and the tablet both connect to the internet when it's available. So you have an app, so you can do record and rewind. You can go back and look in on the day. In some cases, you might be downstairs and you hear that loud bang from your kid's room. You're like, oh no, what was that?
Yeah.
We've all had that moment as well. And, importantly, one of the critical reasons you have a baby monitor is so that you don't just run into your child's room anytime that you think you might need to go in. Because anyone who's ever had a young kid knows the minute you open the door, the game is over. You're in there for a while. You're trying to get them back to sleep. They're excited you're there. As they get older, you're now negotiating, trying to find a way to convince them it's okay that you're leaving. So a baby monitor allows you to be able to look in. So let's go back to that example. You hear that loud bang. You don't hear any screams. You don't hear any cries. Should you run into the room? Well, with this, you can just rewind either on the app or on the device itself, and then check and see all they did was their leg just hit the side of the crib. They're fine. They do not need you in the room. And indeed, if you run into the room, you may make it much harder for them to go back to sleep. And so we want to help parents establish those healthy sleep rhythms and have technology improve their lives rather than be a distraction.
Yeah, no, I remember those with my youngest. We heard a bang and we were like, what the heck was that? He jumped out of the crib. And then we were like, maybe it was just it was just happened right by chance. Next time we heard next day or a week after, we heard a little bit of a thud. Here he had thrown out all his pillows. So he had a soft landing spot. He jumped out of the crib. So it was pretty crazy. So let's just take the concept of sleep. Let's pull that string a little bit. Obviously, I've been through it many, many years ago, but sleep was at a premium. What's the dynamics for a dad, hey, that's got a newborn, not sleeping very much? Let's just talk about sleep. Can you give some insight into sleep and why it's so important? And, what are some of the ways to get some more sleep in those early days?
Absolutely. So bad pun intended, people have woken up to the reality of how critical sleep is. I think for a long time, everyone's like, burn the midnight oil, just get up as early as you can, stay up as late as you can, right? Grind it out, you got to hustle. It comes at a severe cost to your mental and physical health. Basically, any factor of mental and physical health, if you are not getting the adequate amount of sleep, especially relative to your output in the day, you're going to start to be mentally fatigued. You're going to start to degrade from kind of just an overall mental health, your ability to regulate your emotions, to show up as a parent, to show up as a partner, to drive to work and be in a car because you're going to have micro sleeps if you're overtired. All of those things from a mental health perspective, and then from a physical health, anyone can survive short bursts of less sleep. But as you do that over weeks or months at a time, it begins to have profound impacts on heart health. It can increase your propensity for cancer, Alzheimer's. There are some incredible sleep researchers. Dr. Matthew Walker, he's kind of nicknamed the sleep diplomat. He's got a great book called Why We Sleep. I could go on and on and on, but suffice it to say that book is probably the best encapsulation of every indicator of adult physical and mental health is directly correlated to your sleep. And importantly, it's not just hours in the bed, it's actual quality sleep. And this is a big part of both the education and the service that we're looking to create for parents is you might only go into your child's room 1 or 2 times a night. But if you're listening to them cry for hours and hours and hours, you're not actually accumulating any REM sleep or deep sleep, which means your muscles and your brain are not recharging and getting the adequate rest that they need. because you need that quality sleep, which is so fundamental. And then on the child side, the reality is sleep is how your child builds their brain and builds their management of dysregulation, their emotional well-being, their ability to form memories, which is how they learn and grow and develop shapes, colors, sounds, all of those things. That is cemented at the end of the day. Think about it like cleaning up your hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
All of that happens and moves from short-term memory to long-term memory when they sleep. There's a really alarming study that showed children that had less rest in a given night on a consistent basis had literally less brain matter in the areas of their brain that led to learning and emotional regulation. And 2 years later, they went back and did brain scans again. They still had not recovered that same amount of brain matter. And so thankfully, there's been a lot of great research out there that has demonstrated the critical nature of it. Now the question is, okay, so how do I actually get that sleep? I agree that it's a problem. What do I actually do? And I would say there's a couple tips that I would really lean on. And of course, harbor.co, we've got a bunch of free resources on our website, lots of great information on how to do so. But the first thing is establish healthy sleep routines right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are lots of different ways to do it, but every night, help your child get ready for the act of sleep by going through some of the same routines.
Yeah.
Now, it's different for different people, and different people have different work schedules, but at the same time every night, start the process. Go through a bath, go through reading a book, quiet the lights, put on the white noise machine, draw the curtains, establish that routine so your child starts to learn this is what sleep is. The second thing is putting your child to bed awake is absolutely critical. It is such a sweet feeling to rock your child to sleep, and for mothers to be able to nurse their children to sleep. That bond and that connection is really special. But then what you're doing is teaching the child, and they are capable of learning at a very, very, very young age. You are teaching them, this is how I fall asleep. So when they wake up at 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m., all they want are the same conditions that they had to go to sleep last time. And so it's hard, but you put your child to bed awake, they're going to fuss, they might cry a little bit. You got to let them go. You got to learn, they have to learn how to sleep. And then the third kind of pillar that I would say is, before we get to the overarching principle, but the third pillar would be the minute they cry at night, look in on them and understand, are they okay? And as soon as you know that they're okay, and you'll learn pretty quickly they're fine, you need to follow a routine in the middle of the night that doesn't entail just running in the second they make noise. Because the second they make noise, if you're in there, they're going to be awake, they're going to smell you, they're going to want you, all of those things. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. But multiple studies have shown, because parents are worried, if I don't immediately tend to my child, I must be traumatizing them because they're infants and they need me. And that's not true. Studies have shown you are not traumatizing your child, and you are not harming the mother-child bond, any of those things. But overarching principle, everyone focuses on, how do I get my kid to sleep at night? That's actually not where you set yourself up for the victory of healthy sleep. It's during the day. And so healthy sleep habits and healthy routines during the day are how your child learns and is ready to sleep at night. So getting them up at the same time every morning, following the schedule of wake, eat, play, sleep. And so they get used to that same routine, and that they are getting adequate naps during the day. Because if they're not napping during the day, they're going to be all off in the afternoon, which is going to mess up their sleep cycle. So that was a lot to throw at you all at once, but I wanted to hit some of those highlights because those are, I think, some of the things that are most confusing, especially for new parents.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now I'll pull a couple threads. One is burning the candle at both ends. Hey, I was one of those guys. I used to tell my late mother, hey, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yep.
But you know what? I'd be dead a lot sooner than I wanted to if I kept down that route. And just the last 2.5 years really dialing in my sleep, it has been a complete game changer. I mean, I don't get sick. I mean, I have more energy. It's all those factors, but you got to be disciplined about it. So I think that's a slight edge that many dads miss. Like, I'm good, I'll be fine. Man, then all of a sudden you get habitualized to lack of sleep, and then you feel like you're at 100% when really you're at 50% if you got a good night's sleep. So that was a really great one. Preparing for a good night's sleep. I mean, I got teenagers, but we dial that in. Hey, we got to prep and get a good night's sleep. I like to say, let's make sleep a game, right? Like, we got to get our minimum of 8 hours in so we can operate at a high level. And then lastly, put to sleep awake. I would say my wife and I were guilty of not doing that. And I remember with my oldest, like literally lying on his floor and putting him back into bed because he was
Hmm.
conditioned to get out because he wanted
Yes.
to see us. So
Yes.
definitely been there and had some experiences in all those areas. So that was fantastic. Just given those details. What if, you know, dad's listening. He's got a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's like with my oldest that I put him to bed with me, or his wife has put his son, daughter together with them. And they're
Yeah.
trying to break that pattern. What are one or two things that they can do to start to break that pattern? Cause I just looking at my history, that was a big challenge of getting him to sleep by himself without us
Yeah.
and not climbing out of bed to come find us.
Yeah. So, gosh, such a great question. And I think that's an important point to reinforce. You're not alone in whatever sleep struggle you have. Everyone, there's someone that's experienced it, and probably a lot of people. And we all love our children and we want the best for them. And sometimes we can make decisions that end up kind of snowballing, like, oh,
Mm.
well, we'll just let them sleep in here for this week. And then all of a sudden you're trying to get them back into, okay, you have to sleep in your bed sometime, right?
Yep.
Um, None of those are, you're not a bad parent if you are find yourself in one of these moments. But I would say when it comes to getting a toddler back into that routine,
Mhm.
there are two tips or things that I would suggest. One is frankly just change the game and set a condition for reward. And
Okay.
so you don't want to have to reward every behavior that you ever want, but if you need to break the cycle, there could be a really great reward for, if you stay in your room tonight, tomorrow we can go to the zoo or we can go on a
Mhm.
bike ride, or and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be something that they particularly enjoy,
Gotcha.
so that there is a look. 2 year olds have very underdeveloped brains relative to the rational decision making that sometimes as dads we forget that they
Mhm.
actually aren't rational thinkers here. um, but they might say, okay, I'll be willing to do so. The other thing is, you maybe for a couple days spend a longer period of time with them reading a book in their
Mhm.
bed and making it a really special thing that you're in there with them. I think those are two kind of tips or tricks to help kind of change the routine. The other thing that parents are going to run into is fear. So there are
Mhm.
different phases where all of a sudden sleeping in their own room can be really scary. And so that safe sleep space is really important. So are there things that you can do? So adding night lights. You don't want to have all the lights on in the room, because lights on overhead, especially overhead and incandescents, really interfere with the ability to sleep. But maybe you can do night lights. Hatch makes a really great night light that you can change the kind of color, or you can change the white noise on. Maybe you can turn a closet light on. There
Mhm.
was a period in time where my son was doing great, and then all of a sudden he was really afraid of his room again. So we would check the room together. And I would say, basically, I'd sort of reinforce, do you think I'd ever let anything happen to you? No. All right, well, let's check this room together. We'd open his closet. I mean, he has a very small closet and a very small bathroom, and that's it. But we'd go through it. We'd open the shower curtain, we'd open his drawers and his dresser, and that sort of ritual, we're going to check this together, started to get him into, I'm safe here. My dad is with me. We're watching. And then, maybe for a couple nights, you got to let him sleep with the door open.
Mhm.
And it might be louder or there might be disruptions, but they're going to feel that they're not isolated and away. And then if you stick to it, I, having talked now to thousands of parents, you hear about parents who are really struggling, and they feel like they fail because it hasn't worked in 2 or 3 nights.
Right.
Well, it might take 2 or 3 weeks to get back into the routine, but if you stick to it, eventually you will be able to get there. But come all the way back to, if you're struggling with a 2, 3, 4 year old or older, what does the routine look like before bed?
Mhm.
Are you having dinner as a family? Is it good, wholesome, nutritious food, or is
Right.
it, McDonald's?
Yep.
Are they having sugar really late? Are desserts interfering? Is there potentially caffeine? Because some of these kids' drinks actually sneak a little bit of caffeine in there.
Mhm.
And then, are you taking a bath? Are you reading a book? Are you calming down and preparing the mind for sleep? Some of us are so tired at the end of the day, we're like, I could literally run, a mile around the block and come in and fall asleep. Well, kids can't do that because they don't
Mhm.
have that sense of rhythm yet. So
Right.
stick to it, and then think about, what does the structure and routine look like? And is there calm in the house? if you're frenetic and if you and your wife are not doing well together and there's lots of argument and animosity and tension, that's going to set the kid up to not feel safe and in a good place. And so maybe just find a way that, like, hey, we're going to have this conversation after the kids go to sleep, or maybe we need to go for a long walk this weekend to work this out,
Hmm.
so that our kids feel like they're in that good place to be able to cope and get ready for sleep.
Yeah, no, I love that piece. And I think that prep is so important. And I was writing down as you were talking through it, that prep, blue light stimulation with tech. I mean,
Oh
give
yeah.
the advice to parents related to that and their kids' sleep, because I mean, I see it out at the restaurant, and I was guilty a little bit when we were younger that, hey, give our kids an iPhone or something, they're checking
Mhm.
out a video, but definitely before sleep, what's the impact of being exposed to blue light or stimulation on a kid's sleep?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as adults, we shouldn't be looking at blue light and phones and all of the information in the entire world pounding us with bad news before
Mhm.
we go to sleep. And that is especially true for young kids and young minds.
Yeah, no, I did a little test last last fall. I mean, I dial in the PM and I get away from blue light, wear blue light blockers, but I watched, I think it was a Chris Helmsworth like Extraction, both his movies back to back nights, and
You're
it's
fired
so,
up.
yeah, it was so action, like I literally couldn't fall asleep, and I'm like, here's a great example, just testing on
Yeah.
myself of like, and not only as dads do we need to get away from it, but if our kids are watching stuff and exposed to it, it just is not setting them up for success in a sleep perspective. You also mentioned balancing business and parenthood. Obviously, you're running a company. You've got two younger kids. How does that work, and how do you navigate that dynamic?
I'll say never perfectly.
Mhm.
I'm always struggling with this, and I've written some about this. I'll tweet about it. I'll talk to you about some of the things that I'm working on, and I don't even sort of want to pretend I've got it all figured out, and everyone should just follow my playbook. But some of the principles ultimately are separating time between work and family.
Mhm.
And the biggest drain on my family is this thing, the phone.
Yep.
And so I never wanted an Apple Watch because I wanted fewer notifications in my life, not more. But having an Apple Watch has made it to where when we go for a walk, I can just leave my phone at home. If we go
Mhm.
for a bike ride and go to the playground, I can't do anything on my watch. I don't get email. I can call people. I can send myself a reminder so I don't forget. And I can voice to text people, which is really obnoxious.
Right.
But it means that I get the bare bones of the technological necessities and I am reachable in case of an emergency, but otherwise I can just be there with the kids. Just having my phone in my pocket is already a problem. And so I try to leave my phone in my office when it's time for
Mhm.
me to go out because I work from home. I like to go out
Yep.
to dinner, leave my phone in the office. Um, and then also just when it's time to go out and be with the kids for dinner and after dinner and bedtime, that's time for family. And then if I
Mhm.
need to go back to work, then I go back to work. I don't try and have those two things go together. Building a startup is, I will admit, harder
Mhm.
because you are the alpha and omega of things that need to happen. um, and then the other thing is just trying to have very focused time and activities on the weekend. So sometimes I need to
Mhm.
work on the weekend, but say like, all right, we're going to go to the park for 2 hours
Right.
and then I'm going to come back and get some stuff done rather than feeling like that push and pull all weekend long. Because I've heard this recently, work it's like a gas, it will fill its
Mm.
container.
Yep.
And so if you allow it, it will be there. It will never, ever, ever stop. And then importantly, we talk about being a dad and balancing, parenting and work. Uh, when my relationship with my wife is not a top priority, everybody else suffers. The kids
Mhm.
suffer. She suffers, and I do as well because it is the first most important relationship in the house.
Mhm.
And so, with time and all the demands that exist on us, it's that idea of, I think I've heard, one date a month and one weekend a quarter and one week a year. That's a nice benchmark. Doesn't always happen that way, but just something where it is just the two of you,
Mhm.
because even when it's family time, that doesn't count as filling up your buckets as partners.
Right.
It's nice and it's important, but you need to be able to just have that relationship with each other. And then, I've always been transparent about this. We've seen a counselor off and on together for a long time. And sometimes we'll go a year or two without seeing him. And then we'll go, I think we need to go talk to a counselor because we need some sort of neutral arbiter to help us get past each other.
Okay.
But having that routine over years, there are times where both of us have said, would you say that if Chris were sitting here right now? Chris is the counselor that we've seen for a long time. And it's like, yeah, no, I don't think I would say that if Chris were sitting right here. And that's honestly, like, because we've had that rhythm for a long time, it's a helpful way for us to come back together.
Right. No, I love that. And I love kind of creating the boundaries between work and being a dad. And I think a lot, so much of the workforce and owning your own company, you work from the house, man, that line can be blurred pretty significantly. So creating some boundaries and saying, hey, I'm closing down my laptop for the day. It's family time is so important. Get away from that phone. I mean, that's the kryptonite for almost everyone. And then love dedicated time with your spouse. I mean, this year I committed to my wife every week we're going on a date, but many times it's just 20 minutes for coffee on Sunday at Starbucks, just in front of each other. It has made a world of a difference in our relationship this year because, and it could be just going for a walk for 15 minutes, but we're just together, just the two of us. I think many times, and I know this was true when we were first parents, you're drinking through that fire hose and you don't have any time and you kind of lose yourself in those early days. So love those pieces, Kevin. Kevin, where can people find out more about you? Where can they find about the monitors, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So first and foremost, at harbor.co, we have so many great resources that are free. We've got interviews with experts. We have sleep guides for infants, sleep guides for toddlers. So that is anyone, please go check those out. If we help parents and kids sleep better, then we are aligning towards our mission. You don't have to be customers. We put that information out there to try to be a resource. But at harbor.co, people can sign up for our baby monitor. We'll be shipping our first 100 units this spring, and then we've already sold out of that first batch. Everything else will be shipping late summer. We look to be able to change thousands of families' lives this year. You can find our company on all the socials at Harbor Sleep. And then you can find me on X at Kevin S. Lavelle. And also I post a lot on LinkedIn about the professional side of building this journey and some of the cool moments of being a dad. We were just at a golf tournament this weekend where Mizzen+Main, my first company, has a huge setup, and it's so cool for my kids to see. That's the thing that Dad had built with his friends, and to see that out in the wild is a really meaningful thing. So if I can be helpful to any listener anywhere, shoot me a note on X or LinkedIn. I try to be helpful. Obviously, can't do everything I want to in a given day, but I've learned some things along the way, and part of sharing these journeys is to try and help others too.
Man, love it, Kevin. Appreciate you being on the show.
Jeff, thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Dare to be uncommon. Create a legendary day. I'll talk to you soon.